From Durant, Oklahoma, this is Midwest Sports Saturday. Hi, I'm Joey McWilliams, and yes, it is a Thursday, but we are live. It's Division II football, and we are kicking off the 2019 regular season. And we are starting Season 2 now of Midwest Sports Saturday, the debut show, the season premiere. It takes place on the campus of 1,000 Magnolias. That's right, we are here on the campus of Southeastern Oklahoma State University, and it is a warm day. It is a hot day. A case could be made, actually, I believe, that we are actually sitting in a blast furnace right now. Again, I'm Joey McWilliams, glad to be with you, and I am joined today by Doug Self, who is the Sports Information Director, and I want to add to that title, which has been amended, updated, promoted in the recent months, the Associate Athletic Director for Media Relations. Doug, congratulations.
Hey, thank you very much, Joey. It was, not a lot of things changed. It's just still a lot of the same media relations type duties, but, it's exciting to be, you like being appreciated, and I guess that's really what it boils down to is the people at SWOSU must, they must like the work we've been putting out, so they were willing to give me that promotion.
Oh, I don't think there's any question. You seriously are one of the best in the business. Now, full disclosure, Doug is a friend, so I'll just say that right there. A good guy, all-around good guy, and we've had an opportunity to work together for many years now in various capacities, working with the GAC, also with Great American Conference and doing different things. But seriously, this guy is one of the best in the business, and I'm glad to get to open Season 2 having Doug here. And we have to have a Doug Self drop anyway, I think, at least every other show. So
I think that's in the original contract. When the show started last year and the first one was in Weatherford at the Pioneer Cellular Event Center, I think that was in the fine print somewhere. I'm not sure if you must have been looking over the contract during the off season, but yeah, I think we're required at least one name drop every couple weeks.
At least one. Well, we have the real deal here with us right now, so let's go ahead and get on into what's happening. This is, again, Midwest Sports Saturday, Thursday night because of Division II football taking place. Listen, and next week it looks like we'll also be on a Thursday night. We'll be broadcasting live from Tahlequah at Northeastern State University. More Division II football and CMIAA. Many of their teams are playing Thursday night games tonight, and a number of them will play Thursday night games as well next week. So we'll get to Northeastern State next week. They are taking on Emporia State tonight at Emporia State. And Doug, we're going to look through the Division II schedule Thursday night games right now, so feel free to jump in. I know a couple of them are close to home for you in particular, and as we talk about those, 122nd season of football at Emporia State, and ESU, the Hornets, 8-5 all-time against Northeastern State, won 34-7 last year in Tahlequah.
Yeah, Northeastern State this year is breaking in a new head coach, and J.J. Eckert, who's an alumnus of the program and coming back to lead them. They've struggled since they went to the MIAA. Shoot, it's probably been, 7-8 years ago now. And, that's a program that's working to get on the right footing. I think they're hoping they've brought home the right guy in Coach Eckert, and, we'll see how it goes. Emporia State is no easy task, especially on the road to open up. So, tough task for the Riverhawks tonight.
No doubt. I'm going to put Doug to work really quickly right now while I tell you that it's going to be Ouachita and Harding, and that is one of the television games that are taking place. Now, there are two TV games going on tonight. See, this is what happens. I mean, you get a sports information guy, and he's just always willing to get the job done
whatever it takes.
Harding at Ouachita, battle of ranked teams, and this was the case last year when Harding and Ouachita met. It was a battle of ranked teams, just about the same rankings, too. Number 20 at number 6. Ouachita, the GAC champion back-to-back years, 2 trips to the playoffs. Harding's 3 straight trips to the playoffs. I mean, this could be a preview of the GAC championship in week 1.
Yeah, and these are the two teams that kind of proven to be the premier programs in the Great American Conference over the past handful of years. And, I mean, it's great, and it kind of stinks that they're playing in week 1 because it's awesome because you have a matchup of that caliber right off the bat. But then, again, you think back, we might be looking back 10 weeks from now, and, the conference championship could have been decided in week 1. So, I know there's 10 other programs that'll have something to say about that, but, I mean, that is a very high-profile matchup right off the bat.
Exactly. 2 of them will be playing behind us here in just a little bit, Southwestern and Southeastern. Number 10, Northwest Missouri on the road tonight taking on Missouri Western. Northwest Missouri leads the series 27-13 and has won the last 6. Well, of course, Northwest Missouri, I believe, is an amazing program specifically in the 2010s.
Yeah, but that's still, it's still a rivalry game, and, every time you go into a new season, you don't know what each team's going to have. And, Missouri Western's in their 3rd year building it up under, their new coach. And, Coach Poblish came from that staff. We know the type of talent that they have. We've even, got a transfer on our team that came from Missouri Western. So, They've been really building it up. There's, like I said, there's no better way to test yourself than to bring in the rival on week one.
My goodness. And that's the same thing, though. I mean, is there a letdown after that? Likely not for either of these teams, but to face a rival on a Thursday night to open the season.
Yeah, and I've been seeing, Missouri Western's posting a lot. This is their 50th year of having a football team.
Yes, that's right, the golden year.
Yeah, so they're having a lot of events based around that golden year. So, I mean, St. Joe's always a tough place to go and play. They built that facility up for Kansas City Chiefs training camp. So, I mean, it's going to be a great atmosphere. Maryville's not far up the road, so there will be a lot of green in the stands as well. But I think that'll be one of the bigger games of the night as well.
And I saw, too, for Griffins fans, if you're at the game tonight, they're going to be wearing all gold for the first time tonight. So that's in honor of the golden season. Number 22, Fort Hays State, after back-to-back MIAA championships on the road, taking on Central Missouri tonight. That is the other game that will be nationally broadcast. We mentioned Washington Harding. That one a big game as well.
It's pretty incredible that, our region on week one is going to have the two D2 showcase television games. And, two games like, we said earlier, those could be two games that 10 weeks from now we're looking back that they decided a playoff spot or a conference championship or home field in the playoffs, whatever it may be. These are big games right out of the bat. And I know, every game matters in Division II football. And so, I mean, there could be some stuff on the line tonight, right out of the gate. So these teams, I'm sure they prepared all camp to get ready for it. Hays has won, like you said, 2 straight MIAA championships. And, it's a program historically that hasn't had that type of success. So they'll look to sustain it. But, I mean, Warrensburg's a tough place to go.
It really is. And you know what? This is another opportunity for Brooke Bowling, because this is the game. I mean, he was getting ready for a big senior year last year, and this is the game in which he was injured and wound up missing the entirety of the season. He is back, had the medical red shirt. He comes back, and so they're playing this one in Warrensburg tonight. I think Bowling has a big game tonight.
Yeah, and if there's any consolation to get hurt in the first game, it's that you can get that season back and come back and try it again. So that's good for him.
He's playing with a different deck of cards, though. That's the thing. But he's used to them now, and has a good backfield with him. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on. Arkansas Tech on the road tonight at Monticello. New Tech coach Kyle Shipp in after 5 years as a coordinator on the UAM staff. And so he's getting that Monticello trip out of the way, again, in week one.
Yeah. And that, that Monticello offense has been pretty dang good the last few years under his direction. So, he was originally headed back to Tech to take over as the coordinator and gets bumped up into the head spot. And, I saw somewhere where it's been something like 30 or 40 years since Tech has had an alumnus of their program lead him as the head coach. So, there's always just an added boost of pride like that when you have an alumnus of the program leading them. So, Coach Shipp, I'm sure he'll do a great job with there, just like he did at Monticello.
Tech 2-2 against Monticello in the last 4 years. Actually, 4-4 in the last 8 years. So there's been back and forth between those two schools. Southern Arkansas on the road tonight to take on Southern Nazarene in Bethany, Oklahoma. Southern Arkansas lost 3 straight games in the season last year. I mean, this was a team that was on a roll. Actually came here to Durant, got tripped up a little bit, won a couple more games, and then the season just fell apart. But they're taking on a Southern Nazarene team that they are 7-0 against all time. Here's the deal, though, Doug. It's been getting closer and closer. This one's in Bethany tonight. Last year was a 21-16 win for the Mule Riders, but that Crimson Storm's getting closer.
And you talk about Southern Arkansas losing 3 straight games, and then the losses didn't stop, because after that, the quarterback Barrett Renner graduated, Devondrick Lyson graduated, wide receiver whose name escapes me at the moment. Those were 3 All-American caliber individuals that they lost off that team, and they've been one of the, I'd say, the upcoming teams in the league the last few years, competing for conference championships. But now they're going to be in a little bit of a rebuilding mode, and that Southern Nazarene team's been getting better, and like you said, been getting closer to them. So, I mean, could that be your upset alert in Bethany tonight? I guess we'll have to wait and see.
It could be. Was it Carrance Higgins?
Yeah,
I think it was Carance Higgins, a talented receiver out there. Well, we move back to the MIAA because the GAC and the MIAA are your Thursday night games. So Lincoln on the road at Washburn tonight. Lincoln with the first game back in a while with an MIAA schedule. It's been in the MIAA, but it's been playing a Great Lakes Valley Conference schedule in football for a number of years. Washburn leads this all-time series 6-0.
Yeah, not a lot of those games have been very close. There's a reason, I think, a few years ago that Lincoln looked to get out of the MIAA and play the GLVC schedule. They've won some games. They've been more competitive during those years, so you hope that they come back to the MIAA, a more complete team that's ready to compete at the MIAA level.
And Lincoln picked 12th in the conference coming in. So the opportunity to make something happen, that's what awaits really the Blue Tigers, is the opportunity to make something happen. By the way, they weren't the only team. Southwest Baptist also played that GLVC schedule. Southwest Baptist has made the full transition now to the Great Lakes.
Yeah, and they had some really good success. I think it was either 2 or 3 years ago they made it to the playoffs. They had a really stout offense where they were putting up some big-time numbers in the GLVC and got them. I don't think they quite got a conference championship, but they got into the playoffs, and that's good for those programs. They need that type of momentum as they're continuing to build their programs moving forward.
2 of the winningest programs in Division II history meet tonight on a Thursday night. And I'm talking about Pittsburg State and Central Oklahoma. Pittsburg State, number 1 all-time in Division II, 711 wins. UCO, number 4 all-time in Division II, 635 wins. And here we are, another big one in Week 1.
Yeah. I'm going to withhold my comments for that game because you've got a gorilla getting ready to step into the chair in Stephen McTeer. So, I will let him preview that matchup for you because he'll have a lot better insight to give you than I will.
Oh, yeah, we'll get a chance to visit with Stephen McTeer, the play-by-play voice of the SWOSU Bulldogs here in just a moment. Let's get a couple more games here really quickly. Nebraska Kearney at Missouri Southern. The Missouri Southern team with a new head coach. Nebraska Kearney comes in running that option offense. Tops in the MIAA last year, 269 yards per game on the ground. So we'll see how the Lopers do start things off on the road in Joplin.
The fans of Last Chance U might want to check out that game because, Garden City's head coach Jeff Sims made plenty of appearances on that, is now the head coach at Missouri Southern.
Looking on Northwestern Oklahoma, East Central, and that is in Ada tonight. Northwestern's won 3 straight in the series. Here's the key, I think, to this one. For Tigers fans, you have Ontario Douglas coming back. He was out last year. The Tigers didn't have a good year last year, and this could be key to that Tigers. I think it is key to the Tigers offense, no doubt.
And that East Central team is extremely young. I've been that's who we play next week for our first home game. I've been doing a little bit of my game prep to get ready, and I've seen the roster, and there's a lot of new names, a lot of young, a lot of freshman, sophomore on the depth chart that you see. But having a guy like Ontario Douglas, even though he's just a redshirt sophomore, that's experience bringing back, and I think he's going to lead his team as they fight on.
You were going to trip me up with that, weren't you? Absolutely. Now the East Central fight song will be in my head for the remainder of this broadcast, so it may be brought to you by the letters E, C, and U. The big one behind us right now, this is the other Thursday night game. Southwestern taking on Southeastern tonight from Durant. Southwestern has won its last 2 season openers. Southeastern's won 4 of the last 5 in this series. Yep. I know we're going to talk with the play-by-play guy here in just a moment. Your take on the game?
Man, there's just so many unknowns on both sides. Like I've said it a few times, even talking with Steven, as I've been out to practice and most of my time is spent, I've heard the names. I've seen some of the faces. Now I got to put it all together, and there's a lot new with the Bulldogs. New quarterback, a couple new offensive linemen, new receivers, defense across the board. There's a lot of new faces. So I think there's a lot of talent on the field for the Bulldogs. We'll see how it all comes together tonight. Week 1 last year was probably the best game that Southwestern played under Coach Poblish in his opening year. So I expect some fireworks, at least from the SWOSU side of things. With Southeastern, you got some unknowns as well. You got a new coach, some players back that had success in the past, and a coach who's had success. So you would think that would lend you to think early success, but obviously, things are never as they seem.
No, and it is Week 1. We have a couple of Southwestern guests who open our broadcast tonight here on Midwest Sports Saturday. We'll have a couple of Southeastern guests coming in a little bit later on. So you'll get the Bulldog slant at least to get started. We're about to bring in Stephen McTeer. Before we do, though, we're talking about football all across the Midwest. And MidwestSports.net covers sports in Oklahoma, Arkansas, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, Iowa. And the top team in the country in NAIA football is from Iowa. Morningside, 15-0 last season under Coach Steve Ryan, and some people might have thought, well, should they be number 1 coming in? Because you'd lose Trent Solsma, you'd lose Connor Niles, you lose that connection to graduation, mind you. Are they going to be able to play as well as they did? How about 80-0 on Saturday? Just absolutely drubbed St. Francis, and Joey Jolinchek, the quarterback, came in, had a fantastic outing, and we got a chance to hear from Coach Steve Ryan regarding his offense and how the team played.
He just made really good decisions with the football today. Everyone around him played really well on offense. The guys caught the ball well. We were able to establish a running game. He got good protection. He didn't get sacked all day. But Joey throws ball well. Joey's a good quarterback, you know, and he had his opportunity. He worked hard this summer to prepare himself for that opportunity. Came out and played well.
Talk to me about your running back position. It seems like you've got as many backs as you want to put into the game. You've got them. AP, Anthony Sims, Tupac, and Nelson Doe as well. All made impacts in today's game. What did you see out of the running back position in this contest?
AP did a great job today, and he's our guy. There's no question, you know, in terms of what we do on offense. So much centers around him, and he really came out and played well. The two young kids, you know, Tupac and Nelson, they're very talented. I mean, they got a ways to go, so it was good to give them a chance to play today. But you can see, especially Tupac, how dynamic he can be in the open field.
The defense had a ton of success in the first half as well as the second half, pitching a shutout. Turnovers were the big key to the first half. You had a couple interceptions, some fumble recoveries. Was it just getting pressure on a true freshman quarterback that led to so many turnovers?
Yeah, I mean, their quarterback's going to be dynamic as years go ahead. He was put in a tough situation today, and they turned the ball, and you know, you just see the results of that. And that's really what led to the score being the way it was, that our defense played lights out, created turnovers, and just kind of turned it into a rout.
Back live here in Durant, and as we had a chance to visit with Coach Ryan, he actually was talking a little bit about next week as well. And they have the bye week as Morningside before they take on Hastings. I believe that is on the road against Hastings. And Coach Ryan, not necessarily a fan of the bye week going into week 2, but it seemed to work well for him last year. I think if you walk off with 15-0 and you've won, you know, that title, come away with a ring, it'll be all right. The schedule is what it is. And so thanks very much to not only Coach Ryan, but also Mark Adkins, Aaron Edlin, and the Sports Information Department at Morningside for helping us with the video production there. Well, right now we have Stephen McTeer, who is the play-by-play voice of the Southwestern Bulldogs, sitting in. And Stephen, I know last year at this time, well, they were still, you know, trying to get everything together with all the works of play-by-play, and there had been some changes made. Yep. We didn't get a chance to visit with it last year, so I'm really excited that you get to be here with us today. And talking, you know, Southwestern rivalry game here in week 1. I think there's a lot to be seen from both of these teams. It is year 2 now for Coach Chet Pobolish. Yep. Talk about what you've seen now, transition and through camp, bring us into today.
I think certainly, you know, year 2, you'd like to think it's going to be better. I think there's a lot of optimism, but I'll let go what Doug said. There's a lot of unknowns. You got a lot of guys on both sides of the ball that haven't played a game in a couple of years. A lot of guys that are redshirting. You know, for instance, starting running back Tristan Houston is a graduate transfer from the University of Texas. He was a Longhorn for 3 years, but he only played in 3 games, and that was back in 2016. So he hasn't played a full contact, full speed game in quite some time. Tyler Marr making his first collegiate start since 2017, back up for his whole career. You'd like to think, you know, that a fifth-year guy is going to come out poised and ready to go, but this is the first time under the gun in the opener. So there's optimism, but there's also maybe a little bit of trepidation deep down, just wondering, okay, what are we exactly going to see here? But I think both teams are going to learn as much tonight about their teams as they've learned in an opener in the last few years.
You talked about Tyler Marr, and he's making the start now for Southwestern tonight. Comes in. Casey Freeman was at the helm last season, and it looked like that, you know, there could be one of 2 or 3 players that would step into that starting role. Marr gets the job. Yep. Talk about that offense, and it's going to be led by him.
And Tyler Marr he's first off, he's a great kid. He's incredibly intelligent. He's big. He's exactly what you want from a quarterback. He's, you know, 6'5", 220 pounds. He's the prototypical guy. Deceptively athletic. He played last year. I mean, he came in and he was an option guy.
Right.
So he came in, he ran the option. He told me at our coaches show last night, he said our option game is lethal. So he's looking forward to that. He's got a great arm. He's got a lot of talented guys around him. So, you know, for him, I think the key is just to kind of settle in early. But he's got the tools to do it. He's got the players around him. He's got the offensive minds with Coach Pobolish and Coach Hennis leading him. So, you know, he's got all the tools to have a great year. You know, it comes down to him executing, and he's definitely got the goods to do it.
One of the keys, I believe, for Southwestern to have a better season this year, as we speak now with Stephen McTeer, the play-by-play voice of the Southwestern Bulldogs, is that the defense really has to step up and the adjustments that have been made. Talk about the defense this year.
3 of the 4 top tacklers are back. A couple really good transfers. Doug mentioned last chance you with Coach Sims at Missouri Southern. One of the middle linebackers from that team last year is with us, Wesley Mathis, and he's a grown man at middle linebacker. We got Braden Sweet moves from outside linebacker back to a natural spot at safety. The secondary's back, and that secondary forced 18 takeaways last year, which was 3rd in the conference. So they're all back. Defensive line loses a couple guys. One guy, Reggie Mays, did make the trip, was hurt, so true freshman will be starting at end. But that defense they're super, super athletic. They gave up a lot of points last year, but if you look at the numbers from week 1 to week 6 and then week 6 and on, the defense was actually pretty good. The first part of the season was a little rough. A lot of injuries, new system, but they were young last year, and they got so much better towards the end of the year. So I would expect that to be a strength of this team coming into the season.
All right. Now, I realize week 1, we don't know that much about either one of these teams.
Yeah.
And obviously, and we'll talk about Southeastern a little bit more as the play-by-play voice of the Savage Storm is coming in to join us here in just a moment, Jay Lindley. But it's a new head coach here in Durant as well with Coach Tyler Fenwick. And so we don't know that much about either one of these teams. Give me a prediction anyway.
Man, that's on the spot. That's what Coach Povilish told me this week. He said, we don't really know a lot of stuff that they're going to do because there's just not a lot of film out there because you never know when a new coach comes in. I would expect both offenses to kind of ease their way into the game. I don't know that we're going to see a bunch of fireworks early on, although both teams have big play guys.
Mm-hmm.
This has been a tough place for Southwestern to win. I can't not pick them, obviously.
No. I would be disappointed. I would be really disappoined.
I wouldn't be able to go back to Weatherford. There'd be a big gate on I-40 as I drive back in.
Go ahead and find a hotel room here.
Yeah. 27-24, and I'll pick the Bulldogs. I think it's going to be a good game, though. I really have a feeling that it's going to be pretty good. I don't see anybody running away with it, but first game jitters, first game mistakes, certainly going to be there. But I think, it might be a tale of two halves, if you will.
All right, we'll look for that then. Stephen McTeer, the play-by-play voice of the Southwestern Bulldogs. And really quickly, one other thing, too. Your time in Weatherford has to be it's had to have been great so far.
Yes.
I mean, you got to call a national championship game last year. Of course, the Southwestern women's basketball team double overtime loss. I mean, and it was just in their grasp. For a fraction of it, it still hurts. I know. And so you get to call the national championship game. It's been a fun ride at Weatherford so far, hasn't it?
It's been amazing. And I joke with Coach Music and Coach Anderson. I say, guys, it's no coincidence I come in and you do that. It was all me. Haley Tucker and Hayden Pretty had nothing to do with it. But, we went from Arkansas to Bartlesville to Hayes to Ohio in consecutive weekends. And to watch what that team did and, as good of people as they are, and, to watch them laugh and joke before games and then come out and as soon as the first whistle blew, it was business time. Mm-hmm. It was unbelievable. And they were one offensive rebound away from a national championship. So it's, I'm blessed to be able to do that, certainly. But to come in October and do my first women's game 8 days later and to watch them win 35 straight, you couldn't ask for a better start.
No doubt. And you called a good game, too.
Thank you.
You were fun to listen to. Stephen McTeer, the play-by-play voice for Southwestern. As he steps out, we're going to get to be joined by Jay Lindley here in just a moment. And while they're making that transition, we'll go ahead and take you through some Division I football on tap for the Midwest region for this coming weekend. South Dakota at number 4, Oklahoma. How about Jalen Hurts? My goodness.
Man.
332 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. 176 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. You think the Heisman hype wasn't big enough coming in.
I mean, Lincoln Riley can just walk into anybody's house and say, you want to win a Heisman Trophy? I've never not coached one.
That's exactly right.
Amazing.
That's exactly right. An old Big 8 rivalry, number 24 Nebraska at Colorado. Nebraska leads the all-time series there 49-19-2, but lost to Colorado in 2018. Nebraska, rough season last year. We'll see if they're able to turn some things around. Arkansas is at Ole Miss. Arkansas beat Portland State last week, just in case you were keeping up with that one, 20-13. Yeah, the Razorbacks 20-13, but got the win. Arkansas State lost at home last week, 37-30. They go on the road to take on UNLV. Pine Bluff is at Alabama A&M. And Pine Bluff starts the season 0-1, lost to TCU last week. Rutgers is at number 20, Iowa. It's first trip for Rutgers to Iowa City, and Rutgers now in the Big Ten. They'll be making a few more of those trips to Iowa City. Second meeting all-time. Iowa won the first one 14-7 back in 2016. Southern Utah is at Northern Iowa. Northern Iowa, boy, a heartbreaker. Triple overtime loss against Iowa State last week, so they're going to try to turn that around. Truman is at Drake. This is a game that was supposed to be played last year. It was suspended due to weather, so we'll see what happens. Again, different teams, but we'll see who comes away with that. Division II Truman on the road at Drake. It's Coastal Carolina at Kansas.
Oh, boy.
And the Les
My
Miles
Jayhawks
era is underway with a win, a tight win against Indiana State last week, 24-17 the final, but a win.
I'm a Kansas City native, so I sat through a lot of pain as a KU Jayhawk fan. The last time I remember KU being good, I was at the border war at Arrowhead when it was like Kansas second in the country, Mizzou third. Yeah. Since then, it's just been nothing but just absolutely terrible football.
Gone down a little bit.
It's been bad.
I was in Lawrence back in March, and it's a nice place.
Yeah, I mean,
I will go back.
Yeah, in March it is when basketball's going on. From then until like January, it's iffy.
Bowling Green's at Kansas State, and Kansas State opened the Chris Kleiman era last week as well, and a big win over Nicholls State. It's Southeast Missouri taking on Montana State. West Virginia at Mizzou. Mizzou came up short to Wyoming last week, 37-31. And so the Tigers looking to straighten things out. Tulsa also lost last week against Michigan State on the road again at San Jose State. And then McNeese State at Oklahoma State. It's the first meeting between these two schools. But Oklahoma State looked very good on the road at Oregon State. Chuba Hubbard with 221 rushing yards. That leads Division I in rushing yards, and he didn't have a single reception and still leads Division I in all-purpose yards too. So
and played 3 quarters.
And played 3 quarters.
He was amazing. Spencer Sanders was great. Mike Gundy may have something here in the next couple of years.
I think so. I hope so. You know, actually, I have 2 bachelors. One of them came right here in Durant. The other one from Stillwater. So, yeah, there's Go Pokes.
Go Pokes.
Go Pokes. Mike Gundy make that happen.
As a KU fan during football season, I can kind of say whatever I want. My loyalty knows no bounds. Basketball season rolls around. We're fine.
We'll be all right. Well, hey, listen, you mind switching out?
Absolutely. Let's get
both these guys will be on the air at the same time here in a moment, but I have to trade them out right now. Jay Lindley on the way. Thank you. Stephen McTeer from Southwestern stopping by Midwest Sports Saturday. And I do want to say thank you to everyone watching us. Of course, we're live streaming here from Durant, Oklahoma. We will be on the road next Thursday, and that will come to you live from Tahlequah, Oklahoma. And then our first Saturday, Midwest Sports Saturday. I know. I'm finally going to have one on a Saturday. And that will be an NAIA game that we're going to be at, and it will be Panhandle State taking on Langston. That's a big rivalry, and it continues to grow. Langston in the top 15 in the NAIA right now. I've seen a couple of different polls, but we're going to be there on Saturday, September 21st, so looking forward to that one. As Jay Lindley is making his way over here right now. Lots of volleyball to take place. As a matter of fact, we'll talk a little bit more about volleyball as we move on along. NAIA has already gotten some volleyball games underway, but Division II still waiting to get started. And for many schools, including Southeastern, volleyball will not get going until tomorrow, and Southeastern on the road. And they'll be in San Angelo at the Angelo State Invitational down there, as I get to sit now next to Jay Lindley, the Southeastern play-by-play voice. And this is not the first time that we've sat next to one another on a broadcast by any stretch of the imagination.
No, but typically I think I had you on the left. I think that's how
true.
That worked. I think.
I've got to be able to, if I'm running the board tonight, I have to be able to.
You're in the same situation I was in.
Use my right hand to run the board, so that is definitely the case. All right, well, I'll shake your hand then. Thank you very much for being here. Jay Lindley has, let's see, is this year 5 now? Year 5. As the voice of the Savage Storm, as part of the Savage Storm Network. And it's been a fun ride, hasn't it?
It has. I mean, it's always fun when you're winning, and there's been more wins than losses, so that's always a positive. But just getting to do college athletics, I was just telling someone a moment ago, to me, Division II athletics is like athletics at its purest form. I mean, a lot of the kids here, they don't have second chances. You're not going to the pros. You're literally paying for a college or playing for a college education, in most cases partial scholarships. So I love Division II athletics.
Well, make Division II yours. That's right. Make
exactly.
D2 yours.
I did.
There you go.
And I wasn't an athlete either. So
I like that. I liked I chose D2, but I think make D2 yours. I think that's good. And so many of these athletes, they are. I mean, and the stories. You know, it's really one of the reasons that, and I'll stop right here with these. I'll give a shameless self-promotion really quickly. That's part of the reason that MidwestSports.net exists, that OklahomaSports.net exists, is to tell the stories of Division II, NAI, Division III, the smaller colleges, because there are so many pure athletes out here and so many stories to be told that we don't get to see otherwise. So, you know, that's part of why we're doing what we do. Well, let's talk some Southeastern football then right now. You talk about, well, these players and these athletes, and one of the things that you mentioned specifically, been more wins than losses. With football around Southeastern, there have been more wins than losses lately. 5 straight winning seasons, all of them under Coach Bo Atterbury. Coach Atterbury has stepped out, and we bring in Coach Tyler Fenwick, who was most recently at Missouri S&T up in Rolla, Missouri, 10-2 last season. But, Jay, if you're winning 5 years in a row, I mean, man, Coach Fenwick has some big shoes to step into.
He does, and I also, though, think that, you know, in the media, and including myself, I mean, I talked to Coach Fenwick about this numerous times in public, not in public. You know, he gets here, he gets his staff aligned literally signing week.
Yeah.
But having the success that Southeastern has had over the last couple of years, I think helped them go ahead and get some of the recruits that the previous staff wanted, and they were able to take some of these pieces and put them together. And the one thing that I do like about Tyler Fenwick is the fact that offensively, everywhere he's gone, it's been a marked improvement. And that, unfortunately, has been kind of the downfall the last couple of years for Southeastern. If you go and look at the numbers, they had gradually fallen over the last 2 years in points per game, yards per game. So I think with Fenwick coming in, you get something a little bit different, and I think you're going to have the opportunity to see an offense that employs some of the things that we've seen in the past. I mean, Coach Fenwick's good at running the football at Missouri S&T. They set records rushing the football, but they've also got a passing game, and I really like what I've seen so far, offensively speaking.
Well, talk about the passing game. That leads us right into Roland Kinsall, as he'll be leading the charge for Southeastern this season.
Well, the interesting thing, Kinsall, his last big game last year was against the opponent they play today, Southwestern. He threw for 324 yards. He was the last player to throw for over 300 yards against the Bulldogs a year ago. The thing I like about him, and we've seen this in the past, his numbers were a little bit off last year. The touchdown-interception ratio was off. But the fact of the matter is, he's able to make explosive plays. I know you've seen that. He's able to make plays with his legs, his arms, and I think that this offense works well for him. I think it gives him some options. And now he's going to have some targets, too. Right. And the thing that I really like about this offense, Sky Lowe's back, Braxton Kincaid's back, and it's like I was talking with Coach Fenwick earlier today. With Braxton Kincaid, one, he's got a great lineage. His uncle was a Dallas Cowboy. His dad was an athlete. I mean, those things help. But you watch him, and he is deceptively good. I mean, I don't know what it is, but he has it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And then
it is a real thing.
Yes.
It's not just a movie or a sequel. It's a real thing.
Yes. And then, of course, you got Felton Hatcher, who's a returner. And then on top of that, and I'm really interested to see Kavika Pittman. And if that name sounds familiar, they actually call him Deuce because he is the son of another Dallas Cowboy, Kavika Pittman, who played defensive end for the Cowboys in the early 2000s. And if you're not a Dallas Cowboy fan, well, you'll still know his grandpa because it would be Drew Pearson. So there's some positives there. And I think that with that on the receiving side, in particular with Pittman, this team hasn't had a tall receiving target. Going back to Frankie Okafor, that's been 3 years. I mean, they haven't had a guy that could get the jump ball. And so I'm interested to see how that works. I think you're going to see more 4 receiver sets with this offense than you've seen in the last 3 or 4 years.
And, you know, Frankie Okafor, you dropped that name, and that's he's one of those players that saw a little bit of action in the NFL as well. So, I mean, he was definitely a solid athlete, yes. and he took it to the next level. Well, okay, so we're talking about the offense then. Let's go ahead and look at the defense as well, because one of the things that really can't afford to have happen is any kind of drop-off on defense. I know the offense needs to make improvements, but the defense has to do its job as well. Who leads the charge this year?
Well, I think one thing has to be leveled really fast and that's the anticipation of this defense being what it was a year ago. creating 24 turnovers was outstanding, holding opponents to 15 a game. And if you take away some of the mishaps, kick returns, things like that, it was actually more like 12 points a game. A top 10 national defense. You can't have that level of expectation this year on points per game in particular. And the only reason I say that is you're finding a way to replace guys like S.J. Luafata-Songa, Daquan Brown. It's going to be a different look. And I do think it's going to be a productive defense. I think up front they're really solid. You got a returning all-conference player in Jonathan Torres from Sherman. He's in his senior year. Roderick Kirby, a senior end, and Drew Macbeth, another senior end. So up front, I think they're great. Connor Swope, leading tackler from a year ago, he's back. His little brother is a backup on the defense. I like all of that. And then I'm interested to see the safeties. One thing that this group has had over the last 4 or 5 years is really tenacious safeties. And you've got one from Cedar Hill and Jalen Freeman. You got another one from Coppell and Josh Malumba. If you're wondering about Coppell, a great connection there. Of course, Troy Parker, a Coppell product. And they're well coached defensively, played for Malumba didn't, but Coach Parker played for Coach Joe McBride. I mean, so these guys, I think, are going to be good. I'm excited to see what they do. I think it'll be a different look, but I still think it'll be very productive.
I think it's good to say Coach Troy Parker.
Yeah,
good to be able to continue talking about Southeastern players.
I feel odd saying that, but I'm glad he's still around the program because he was a blast to watch throughout 4 years.
And I have heard he's pretty fired up about this defense this year too.
I could see that. I mean, he's got a lot of the responsibilities. He's coaching the secondary, so he should be fired up.
All right, then, as we move on through, and I know you have a pregame show of your own to get to here in just a moment. It was probably not as long as his postgame show. Jay can do a long post-game show.
That really depends on the outcome, Joe. You've been a part of those, so you know.
I say we have a chance to work together. We were actually, for 2 seasons, got to work together as a football crew, and then we did basketball together as well, so it was fun to get to work with Jay. So, just thought I'd throw out there. Now, your post guys, and I tease him right now. Not that anything would hold a candle to a Rex Nelson post-game show anyway.
It's true.
So, and if you don't know Rex Nelson, look that one up.
I've actually listened to that post-game show as I'm crossing into Texarkana, and I've been away from Arkadelphia for an hour.
We love you, Rex.
Love you, Rex.
We love you, Rex.
You're the godfather of the GAC,
right.
play-by-play.
Keep doing those long post-game shows. All right, well, now we've dropped some names. Anyway, prediction for today.
I think that this team, it's really unknown. It's an unknown for Southwestern as well. Today's day and age of football, you think certain things are good, but the fact of the matter is, in fall camp, they don't hit like they used to. You really don't know. I mean, and I always say this nowadays, you really don't know what you have until somebody takes a hit, because you haven't really hit anyone since maybe the spring game. So that's one thing that I kind of look at prediction-wise. I think that this offense is really in tune. The defenses typically look better first. I'm going to go on the low end and say 28 to 14. Or let me change that. 31-14 Southeastern. I'll give us 30.
All right. Putting 30 on the board.
Yeah, 30.
Okay.
You're at home.
You're at home. Okay.
You're hot.
That's fine.
You got 4 great receivers. I'm ready to say Deuce Pittman for 6. That's what I'm ready for.
Okay.
Or climbs the ladder at 6'4", something. I'll come up with something.
I'll have to go back and
it's
listen
all
for
spur of the moment.
Oh, yeah. You and Jim Nance.
Yes.
There you go. That's all right. It's okay to be prepared. It's all right to be prepared. Jay Lindley, the play-by-play voice of the Southeastern Savage Storm, thank you very much for stopping by and visiting with us.
Hey, man, love what you're doing. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being a part of it. We're going to have another guest on with us here in just a moment, but let's talk some D3 schedule really quickly. Buena Vista, the only game on the docket for tonight. Buena Vista at Hamline. Also, Lyon at Hendricks, Co at Augustana, that's in Illinois. Dubuque at Wisconsin Whitewater. Lawrence at Grinnell. Loris at Wisconsin Eau Claire. Luther at Whittier. Northwestern St. Paul at Central. Simpson at Bethel. Wartburg at Greenville. Wartburg, by the way, picked to win the American Rivers Conference again this season. Washington, WashU, in its 123rd season of football, and they're playing for the Founders Cup on Saturday against Chicago, and Westminster against Nebraska Wesleyan. So really quickly, before we get to our next guest, I want to talk about volleyball for just a moment. Volleyball getting ready to get underway, Division II volleyball, that is, and we mentioned Southeastern. Well, since we're here on campus, they're on the road at Angelo State. Southwestern, since they're here tonight, we'll mention that headed for Joplin, and they'll be taking on teams in Missouri, the Missouri Southern Classic there. NAIA volleyball's underway, and one of the teams we followed very closely last season was Grandview, and the Vikings had a stellar season, made it to the Final Four in the NAIA women's volleyball tournament. A little bit of a different start this season, 5-4 on the year, and they're headed for a big weekend down in St. Louis. We had an opportunity to hear from Coach Tina Carter talking about her team and the season this year, as it is a little bit different start to the season. Well, maybe why so?
Well, no, it's funny too because we have such high expectations. Yeah, that anything you see that's not incredibly successful is like, what's going on? What's wrong? There's nothing wrong. Yeah. If we look at it realistically, we graduated 80% of our offense, and 4 kids that had played for us for a long time, you included. And when you graduate seniors, there's always holes left that we're trying to fill. And so I think right now it's just kind of a learning process. Now, we didn't schedule any differently than we ever do, which is the important part. So I figured somewhere along the way we would probably take some lumps and maybe lose to some better teams that are better right now, but I wouldn't change anything I did about how we scheduled this year, just because I think it's important to play good competition all the time, not look for wins. We're trying to look for challenging ourselves. And so yeah, this schedule has been a little salty. I think it's been good though. I think it's good for the people coming in to understand that this is a level of volleyball that we want to be playing at all the time. You know, our match against Northwestern the other night, it was literally a battle. I mean, it was a 4-set match that went a little over 2 hours, and it was just back and forth. I think we dug 100 balls. But it was good volleyball. You know, it was just they took swings, we took swings. It was very much back and forth. So I guess 5-4 is considered a rough start for us, but honestly, I wouldn't change where we're at. I wouldn't change the level of competition. You know, we've established that in our program, that's the level we expect to play at all the time. So that's what we're going to continue to do. Well, I think some of it is we have some young players that are playing some pretty big roles. So for us, it's continuing their development, not trying to rush them, but focusing on what they need to work on in order to maybe slow the game down a little bit. I know you remember being a freshman and how sometimes the speed of the game just catches up to you very quickly. So trying to just simplify that for them and make things a little easier for them. Breaking down skill for sure, but also talking a little bit about strategy, understanding situations, how to put ourselves in positions to be more successful. The other thing too is just connections with our center. So with a lot of new players comes new connections and developing those things. Otherwise, it's pretty much standard serve and pass and being a big block and being terminal. You know, I think last weekend we made errors in the last 5 points of every single set that we played. And so understanding how to manage those emotions toward the end of the set and not letting the last five points be any different than the first 5. So we talked a lot about that, and you know, we just talked a little bit about coming together as a team, establishing some leadership, just trying to figure out who wants to be the voice, who wants to be the vocal leader, the workhorse, the person who kind of takes charge. And so we're still trying to figure out what those identities are right now.
Of course, things don't get much easier for Coach Carter and the Vikings as well, because they head to St. Louis, and tomorrow, of course, Grandview in the preseason poll, and we don't have another poll that's come out since then, Grandview number 3 in the country in volleyball. They take on number 2 Columbia College at noon tomorrow. Turn right back around, and at 4:30 take on Missouri Baptist, who's the number 4 team in the country, playing on their home court. So it doesn't get much easier. We'll get a chance to hear a little bit more also from Coach Carter next week on Midwest Sports Saturday, which again next week will be on a Thursday. But right now, hey, listen, we are very, very privileged and pleased to get to be joined by another coach from Southeastern, the men's basketball coach, Coach Kelly Green. Thank you, sir, for taking time with us.
My pleasure, Joey. I guess no one else was available. Is that what the deal was? Had a little time to kill.
Had some time, some free time.
Well, I'm here. I'm available.
Well, and you know what? And I'm just going to go ahead and start this way because Coach Green usually will give me a little bit of grief each season. I always get to draw. I don't know if it's the short straw or not, but every year when Michael Westbrook and I do the GAC previews for basketball, I always get to do Coach Green. And every year I'll say something about the previous season, and he'll just debunk everything and just throw it away. We're not about the past. We're not about the past. We're not about the past. Coach, last season was pretty good.
We're all about the past right now. We are all about the past. Forget the present. The future, who knows? We're all about the past, Joey.
Okay, and it was good. And just to bring folks up to speed, if you don't follow Southeastern basketball, the men's basketball team last year, 16-6 in conference, and is 26-8?
23.
23-8, made it to the NCAA tournament as an at-large bid. No doubt about that. I mean, that really, I think, says a lot for the program as well. A GAC tournament championship game fell by 3 to eventual champion Southern Nazarene. Both teams made the playoffs. And then the win against Northern State in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Coach, I know it's probably still fresh in your mind. Talk about that.
You know, it's even as you were saying it, there are certain things that give you goosebumps, and that's still a goosebump game. And I've been doing this for quite some time, needless to say, and don't know if I've ever been a part of anything quite like that, especially on that scale. And it was a tremendous year for us. Our guys really came, the coaches a lot of times say they came together, but one of our goals at the beginning of the year was to build camaraderie, and our players built a great camaraderie amongst themselves, and those things are so hard to get. I mean, sometimes those are harder to get than the leading scorer and the leading rebounder, is to just get that cohesiveness with your team, that from 1 through 15, that they've all got the same goal in mind. They're all pulling for each other, and that was what was so unique about last year's group.
It was a good group, and you are returning some of those players as well. To go even more about that game against Northern State, a tough opponent. You're in the NCAA tournament. It's been a while since Southeastern had been to the NCAA tournament on top of that. And then you find yourself trailing by 18, 19 points in the second half and 11 points with 2 minutes left. I mean, what are you thinking at that point in time? Where are you going to eat afterward?
Yeah. Or do we have to check out of the hotel, or do we get to stay one more night? I mean, that's really about what you're thinking. And, it's a deal where everything had to go right. And almost everything went right. And obviously it did, because we were able to tie it and get to overtime. But, I mean, they still scored a basket or two here and there. But, we got the steals when we needed the steals. We got the threes when we needed the threes. They had their best free throw shooter, at the free throw line with 2 shots with, 10 seconds left. And bless his heart, and he misses both of them. And you really hate it for him.
Right.
I mean, we were fortunate, but –
No, I understand.
I mean, here's a young man who's, given a lot to his program, and he goes to the line, for 100 times, and he's not going to miss 2 in a row. And it just so happened that he did. And again, everything had to go just perfect for us.
And it did for the Savage Storm. They go on and win that game in overtime, losing the second round against a very, very solid Missouri Southern team.
Yes.
I have to ask this. Did you run out of gas?
I don't know that we did, Joey. It's kind of funny because we had prepared in our day off. Missouri Southern had been playing a lot of zone, and we prepared for them to play us zone in our day off. And the good and the bad They zoned us just like we thought they were going to in the first half, and we did a great job of just really executing and getting open shots and made baskets. The second half, they went to man. We weren't quite as good against it, and then we had a very difficult a difficult time guarding them. They had a mismatch, and it wasn't so much their big guy inside who we knew was going to score, but there's a couple guys on the perimeter. We were willing to give up some twos, but we didn't want to give up the threes.
Right.
And it was a hard matchup for us in the second half.
And again, that's not to take anything away from Missouri Southern with that
Not at
statement,
all.
because
Not at all.
they proved themselves throughout the season as well, and
Absolutely.
and then ultimately lost to again, another tough team in Northwest Missouri after that.
Only the national champs.
Only the national champs. That was going to be a tough region to get out of no matter what.
It was, and especially whenever you have to go to Maryville and play in front of 3,000 or 4,000 people, and they're right on top.
The entire
of you.
town.
Yeah, it's a great time to go get something at a restaurant if you want. I guess you can get right in. No waiting lines. No waiting lines at the gas pumps.
Right.
So you can just go get what you want.
And seriously, the support that Northwest Missouri has from Maryville and from the community around there it's fantastic, and
it is.
You know what, I think that goes a long way toward the winning culture, because your basketball team, your football team,
Absolutely.
These are two very, very good programs, and they're supported well.
Absolutely. And whenever you've got that kind of atmosphere from the community, you also have that atmosphere from the university.
Right.
I mean, and it comes from the top down, and it's a great environment to be a part of, and as a player, as a coach, and it's fun for the fans, and so it was a very good situation there.
Coach, one last question, and again, thank you for being with us today, Coach Kelly Green, the men's basketball coach here at Southeastern. And that is this: you look at the schedule, since I know we're still all about the past, but let's look just into the season, just barely into the season, and you see a couple of tough opponents right off the bat. And the first one, you always play a tough Division I opponent. In this year, it's the University of Oklahoma.
Right.
So that could be an interesting game, and you probably could get some fan support to go up to Norman for that one too, to get to see that.
Well, we know we'll get one family to go. The Manick family will be there because obviously we have Kellen, and Brady is up there and has had a great career at the University of Oklahoma. And we're excited to get an opportunity to go up there and play them. And we've been trying to get them on our schedule every year. We've been trying to get Oklahoma State on our schedule. We've been fortunate to get Tulsa and Oral Roberts, and we're still working on the Cowboys. But we're very excited to go up, and it does us a lot of good to go up and compete, and just see kind of where we are.
Okay, the regular season opens with Northern State.
One thing that
How did that happen?
Well, I'm not a very good scheduler is really how it happens. And I tell a lot of people this: if there's anything I do well, I do equally poorly in scheduling. And Adam Bohach from Southern NAS had contacted me and said, "Hey, I've got them coming in, and hey, this would be a great time for you to come in." And Adam basically sold me on coming, because I was thinking, where else could we go? Can we go someplace else? Can we do something else? But lo and behold, there wasn't anything else. So he's got us coming and playing them first round, and then also playing Minnesota Duluth, which was one of the strong teams in the Northern Sun. But it will give us a great indication of where we are at that point in time. And you can't win them unless you play them.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. Well, Coach, you're going to play them this year.
Yes, we are.
You're going to play them this year, but you're coming off
for good or for bad. We are going to play.
It's off camera. Both athletic directors just walked by.
It's a scary deal.
Coach Todd Thurman, Coach Keith Baxter from Southwestern and Southeastern, respectively.
And they were pointing at me, so I'm not sure what that means. I don't know if that's a positive thing or a negative thing. Like, what are you doing over there? Or we're happy to see you there.
Well, Coach, again, success to you this season, and thank you so much for stopping by with us here on MidwestSports.net on a Midwest Sports Saturday. And go ahead and get out of the heat.
I love the heat. I love the heat.
I'm telling you what, it's a warm place. And I'm going to wrap things up, too, because it is pretty warm here right now. Let's look through the NAI schedule really quickly. NAI football, I mentioned Morningside is Idle taking on Hastings on the road next Saturday. It's Benedictine, number 2 team in the country, hosting William Penn this week. And Benedictine, well, you know what? Charles Neihart, Marquis Stewart each had 3 rushing touchdowns last week. We've talked about those two being solid, and they definitely proved it. A 72-7 victory over Graceland. Number 4, Kansas Wesleyan hosting Tabor this week. Kansas Wesleyan defeated Texas Wesleyan, doubled them up 48-24. DeMarco Pruitt with 127 rushing yards and 2 TDs. Matchup of 2 top 12 teams. Grandview, we talked about the Vikings volleyball. How about Grandview football? Grandview defeated Mid-American Nazarene last week. Shut out the Pioneers 34-0. Baker also with a win last week over Culver Stockton. So both teams coming in 1-0. Number 12 Grandview at number 8 Baker. It's Northwestern Iowa, number 11 in the country, hosting Valley City State. Won the last 6 games in this series. Have the Red Raiders, including a win last year over Valley City State. And Tyson Kuma, the quarterback, back for his junior season there at Northwestern. The Heartland Football Classic, that is going on at Wichita. Now, this is a neutral site game featuring a team from the Sooner Athletic Conference and a team from the Kansas Collegiate Athletic Conference. It's number 14 Langston at McPherson. Well, versus McPherson. Let's just put it like that. And that's going to be at Wichita. First meeting between these two schools as well in football. Number 18 Evangel hosting Peru State. That's going to be on Saturday. Evangel with an 19-7 win over William Penn last week. Number 22 Ottawa on the road at Southwestern. It's the season opener. It's the KCAC ESPN3 game of the week. Ottawa, again, the season opener for the Braves. Southwestern lost last week to Midland 47-14. Number 24 Dort lost to Kaiser last week, hosting Waldorf this week. It's Lyon at Hendricks, NAI at Division III. This is the small school battle from the state of Arkansas. Clark, the first ever game played last week, was a loss, but it's the first road game now in program history, and then the Clark Pride are on the road at Missouri Valley. Dakota State, after a 2-overtime win over Dakota Wesleyan last week, on the road to take on Briar Cliff. Graceland at Mid-America Christian. St. Ambrose at Missouri Baptist. Avila at Sterling, season opener for both of those teams. Bethany at Bethel. Friends at St. Mary. Culver Stockton at Central Methodist. Doane at Concordia. And it is Oklahoma Panhandle at Sam Houston State. That's right, the Aggies taking on D1 at Sam Houston State. So that's going to wrap things up for us here. That's your NAI football schedule. Do want to say thanks to a lot of folks. Thanks to Doug Self, again, the Associate Athletic Director for Media Relations at Southwestern. The Southwestern play-by-play announcer, Stephen McTeer. The Southeastern play-by-play announcer, Jay Lindley. And the Southeastern men's basketball coach, Kelly Green. Also want to say thanks to the folks at Morningside Sports Information, again, Mark Adkins and Aaron Edlin as well. Want to say thanks to Kelsey Redmond from Grandview and Coach Tina Carter for taking time, and we got a chance to hear from them. We'll get some more from Coach Carter next week as well. We're about to have some football here, and it is about time. Now, I wasn't kidding earlier when I said it is hot. It is all kinds of hot. It's been 100-plus degrees here in Durant with a heat index of 100++. Fill in the blanks with whatever numbers, because I think just about any number that you'd throw in there would fit. It's been ridiculous. And as my daughter Jolie would say, it's hot. Oh, my goodness, it's hot. Well, I'll say that for her there. It has been here. Big game ready to get taking place here in just, let's see, right about an hour from Durant. Southwestern Oklahoma taking on Southeastern Oklahoma, Great American Conference matchup. Thanks again to all the folks for being part of today's broadcast, and thanks to you for watching. We appreciate that. We'll be broadcasting, live streaming next Thursday afternoon. I believe it's a 5 o'clock start on our live stream. Thursday afternoon from Northeastern State. It's Central Missouri at Northeastern State football. In the meantime, we're going to go ahead and sign off. Thanks for watching. God bless you, everybody. Have a great one.